Canada consists of 10 provinces and 3 territories, each with its own unique history and culture, and I want to see how each one of them and its capital got their names as well as their interesting nicknames. Starting with Alberta and its Lake Louise, we see that they're both named after the fourth daughter of Queen Victoria, Princess Louise Caroline Alberta, whose husband was the fourth Governor General of Canada, so I'm guessing that's why they skipped her 5 older siblings. It's basically the feminine of the Old German Albert, which means noble and bright. But if they had gone with Queen Victoria's oldest child, who was named Victoria Adelaide Mary Louisa, this province could have been known as Victoria Adelaide Maryland or Louisiana instead. Alberta's nicknames include the Energy Province due to it producing the vast majority of Canada's crude oil and natural gas, and the license plate call it the Wild Rose Country. It's also known as the Sunshine Province and of course the Princess Province. Texas of the North referring to the oil production similar to that of Texas, and also as a reference to the province leaning more conservative politically. Edmonton is Alberta's capital and it got its name from Fort Edmonton, which was a trading post founded by the Hudson Bay Company. They named it after the town of Edmonton in Middlesex, England, whose name appeared in the Domesday Book of 1086 AD. In there, it was recorded as Edelmonton, which was a farmstead or estate of a man called Edhelm. And Edhelm here was an Old English personal name. The natives, however, called Edmonton many names like Beaver Hills House and Big House or Big Lodge. Right next door, we have British Columbia. The Columbia in the name British Columbia is derived from the Columbia Rediviva, which was an American ship that lent its name to the Columbia River and later basically to the wider region. The river itself starts in British Columbia and flows through the US on its way to the Pacific. The Columbia part of the name is ultimately a reference to the Italian explorer Christopher Columbus. The central and northern parts of the province, however, were given the name of New Caledonia in the beginning by the explorer Simon Fraser. But to avoid confusion with Colombia in South America and the island of New Caledonia in the Pacific Ocean, Queen Victoria renamed the whole area as British Columbia on 1858 when it became a colony. The province is known as the Pacific Province or Beautiful British Columbia if you look at the license plates, or just the common initials BC. I also read online that people call it the left coast, which is shared with the west coast of the United States, referring to the region being politically left, although the interior parts tend towards the right politically. And just like Alberta is Canada's Texas, British Columbia is oftentimes called British California, as a play on the BC initials and its similarities with California in terms of culture and geography. The province's capital is Victoria after Queen Victoria. Next, we have Manitoba, which was named after its third largest lake. The lake's name in turn comes from the native Cree term man into the Wapa, which means the narrows of the Great Spirit, which describes Lake Manitoba's narrowing to a half a mile at its center. And the waves on the surface rocks of its north shore produce a curious bell-like wailing sounds, which the natives believed to come from a huge drum beaten by the spirit Manitou, and it became the official provincial name at its creation in 1870. The two most common nicknames for Manitoba are the Keystone Province due to its position in the center of Canada, as well as Friendly Manitoba if we go by its license plates. Manitoba's capital is Winnipeg, and its name comes from the nearby Lake Winnipeg, where the story goes that the English explorer Henry Kelsey may have been the first European to see the lake in 1690, when he adopted it from the Cree and the Ojibwe name Win Nipi, meaning murky or muddy waters. New Brunswick is the anglicized name of the German New Brunswick, and it got this German name in honor of King George III, who was also, wait for it, the Duke of Brunswick in Germany. The German Brunswick is derived from an ancient Germanic name and an old Saxon term meaning dwelling place or settlement. The old provincial license plate call it the Picture Province, and it's unofficially known as Little Quebec in French. The capital, Fredericton, was first named Point Sainte Anne in 1713 by people escaping the British takeover of the Acadian regions. So when New Brunswick was later partitioned from Nova Scotia, it became its own colony, and Point Sainte Anne was renamed Frederickstown after Frederick, the second son of King George III, but the name was later shortened to Fredericton in April 1785. The next province is made up of the island of Newfoundland and the continental region of Labrador. The term Newfoundland was first uttered by King Henry VII of England, describing the land explored by the Italian navigators from Venice, Sebastian and his father John Cabot, in 1497. The influence of early Portuguese exploration, however, is mainly reflected in the name Labrador, which derives from the surname of the Portuguese navigator João Fernandes Lavrador, and Lavrador in Portuguese is an occupational name meaning farmer or plowman, derived from the verb labrar, which means to cultivate land, especially translating to one who works the land. The old provincial license plate calls it Canada's Happy Place and a World of Difference. The capital, St. John's, has had different theories behind its name. Some suggest John Cabot named it after landing there on June 24th, which was the feast day of Saint John the Baptist, but this claim has been disputed because we don't know the exact date of his landing. A stronger case points to the Portuguese explorer Gaspar Corte Real, which from a 1519 map shows the name Rio de San Joaquim, possibly referencing a nearby river. But the modern spelling didn't come until the 1570s by the English explorer Parkhurst. Other sources claim that the early English sailors named it after their parish, St. John the Baptist in Bristol, England, which is also known as St. John's on the Wall. Nova Scotia is the only North American region with a Latin name. It translates to New Scotland, and interestingly enough, the term Scotia meant land of the Scotti, which was originally referring to Ireland in ancient Roman times, but it shifted to mean Scotland by the Middle Ages. In the 17th century, Scottish poet and courtier Sir William Alexander, and under King James VI of Scotland, also James I of England and Ireland, was granted the territory. And although it was previously known by different names by the natives and the French, the British and Scottish had already begun calling it Nova Scotia before its official designation in 1621, so that name stuck. Nova Scotia's license plates call it Canada's Ocean Playground, and it's also known as the Blue Nose Province either because of the Loyalists fleeing the area during the American Revolution or because the fishermen's noses turning blue due to the cold weather there. It's also known as the Sea-bound Coast. Halifax, the capital of Nova Scotia, was named after George Montague Dunk, who was the second Earl of Halifax, who aided the foundation of Nova Scotia and was known as the father of the colonies by the British, due to his success in extending the commerce in the Americas. The original English town of Halifax in West Yorkshire was recorded in 1091 as Halifax, most likely from the Old English term meaning area of coarse grass in the nook of land. Moving to Ontario, whose name comes from the Iroquois word Canadario, which means sparkling water. It is a fitting description since the lakes and rivers make up 20% of the province's area. The term Ontario was first used in 1641, but it wasn't until 1867 when the area became a province that the name Ontario was officially adopted. Other sources say it's from the Huron word Ontario, which means Great Lake. Ontario's official nicknames include the Heartland Province, as well as the Loyalist Province, referring to the Loyalists fleeing the United States to live in the area during the American Revolution. And if you look at the provincial license plates, we see the phrase, yours to discover. Ontario's capital is Toronto, and it comes from the Mohawk word Toronto, which means where there are trees standing in the water. But it was originally given to a channel of water between two lakes north of Toronto today. Then the name moved south to refer to the first European settlement there, which was Fort Toronto, that gave its name to the city that grew around it. Prince Edward Island was called Land Cradled by the Waves, then the name changed to St. John's Island by the early French settlers in Acadia like we see on this map, but in 1799 it was renamed honoring Prince Edward, Duke of Kent, which was the fourth son of King George III and the father of Queen Victoria. Prince Edward was also the commander-in-chief of the British North American forces and was stationed in Halifax when the island was named. The province has many nicknames, like the birthplace of Confederation, seen on its license plates, and it's due to the 1864 Charlottetown Conference, where the leaders from Prince Edward Island, Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, and the province of Canada, which later became Quebec and Ontario, met to envision a union between the British North American colonies that would later become the foundation of the nation of Canada. It's also known as the Garden of the Gulf in its tourism campaigns, but it's most commonly referred to with its PEI initials. The capital of Charlottetown was also named after Queen Charlotte, wife of George III and mother of Edward. And the largest city in the state of North Carolina, Charlotte, by the way, was also named after the same queen. The province of Quebec is next, and its name, as well as its capital, Quebec City, comes from the Algonquin word for narrow passage or strait. It was first used to describe the narrowing of the St. Lawrence River near what is now the city of Quebec. It's also known as La Belle Province, French for the beautiful province. And on its license plates and coat of arms, we can see the French phrase meaning I remember. Saskatchewan is named after the Saskatchewan River, and it comes from the Cree term for swift-flowing river. This 8-syllable name was shortened to Saskatchewan, and the province is often referred to as the breadbasket of Canada because it produces the majority of the country's cereal grains, including wheat, barley, and oats. And its license plates, on the other hand, call it the land of the living skies. Saskatchewan's capital is Regina, and its region was previously called Wascana in the Cree language for buffalo bones. The current name Regina is Latin for queen, and it came in 1882 after, drumroll please, Queen Victoria. And the name was proposed by guess who? Her fourth daughter, Princess Louise Caroline Alberta, the same one we talked about in Alberta. And while Regina is nice, Buffalo Bones is way cooler. Moving from the 10 provinces up north to the territories, we make our first stop in the Northwest Territories. And to no one's surprise, it's due to it being in the, wait for it, northwestern part of Canada. The name was accurate when the territory was won, but today we have Nunavut, which is more north, and Yukon, which is more west than the Northwest Territories they split from. The territory has several nicknames, like North of the 60, referring to its position above the 60th parallel, or Land of the Polar Bear for obvious reasons. Spectacular Northwest Territories is seen currently used on its license plates, which are by the way shaped like polar bears. Yellowknife is the territory's capital and only city, and it was named after a local tribe who were also known as the Copper Indians or Yellowknife Indian. Today they're incorporated as the Yellowknife's Dean First Nation. Nunavut's name comes from the native Inuit word for our land. They don't have any motto on their license plates, but it has a polar bear, the Northern Lights, and an Inukshuk, which is one of my favorite words to say. Iqaluit is the capital and only city in Nunavut, and it comes from the native word meaning place of many fish, which is kind of confusing since the flag only has 3 on it. I would either change the name to the place of 3 fish or add more fish to the flag. Yukon is the westernmost territory, and it's named after the Yukon River, which is a native word that means Great River, due to it being the 3rd largest in North America after the Missouri and the Mississippi rivers. And the capital of Yukon is Whitehorse, which was named after the Whitehorse Rapids for their resemblance to the mane of a white horse. Thank you for watching, subscribe if you enjoy it, and I will see you next time on Council of Knowledge.